everyone, welcome to the latest Hedera Hashgraph virtual meetup. And this is the community AMA here that's about how the Hedera consensus service is coming. I'm actually joined by a variety of the leading community members and developers, entrepreneurs in the Hedera community. If you guys just want to go one by one and introduce yourselves, I think that would be great. Pablo, maybe you want to start?
Yeah. Hey, guys. My name is Pablo Payard. You might know me as the founder of Hashing Systems. We build a few decentralized applications like Hashing Service and the Composer wallet for Google Chrome.
That's awesome. Sharat, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sharat Chandra, and I lead the Government Blockchain Association in India. I'm also part of the Hashgraph community. I'm working with multiple startups in Hashgraph space, and I'm looking forward to the AMA.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Sharat. Sharat's actually going to be our host for this evening. So if you have any questions, please put them in the YouTube chat, and Sharat will get to them. Or feel free to ask them on dailystamp.io and hashtag AMA. But we also have Vishal with us. Vishal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Cooper. Hi, everyone. This is Vishal here. I'm co-founder of Resolute Technology Solutions, and we work mainly in the blockchain space. And we're working with multiple startups that are working on Hedera right now. So we have a good exposure with Hedera and Hedera-based applications. And I'm looking forward to answering some of the questions over here in the AMA.
That's awesome. And we actually have some questions about why you can't see ourselves or anything like that. Unfortunately, we won't have our live cameras on for this event, but we will be sharing our desktops and answering questions as we go. So with that being said, I would love to kick it over to Sharat, who is going to be our guest for this evening. And like I said, if you have questions, please put them in the YouTube chat or dailystamp.io and hashtag AMA.
Thanks, Cooper. And so let me start by the first question, which is, what is Hashgraph consensus service and why is it different from other scaling solutions? And why it's going to be a game changer for everyone in the DLT space?
That's a good one. Is that addressed to me, Sharat, or should I let Pablo or Vishal take this one?
I guess, Pablo, you can take this one.
Yeah, sure. So the Hashgraph, I was setting up the screen, so I was totally daydreaming.
Oh, no, you're good. I can answer this one if you want, Pablo.
Yeah, let's start with you.
So the Hedera consensus service is really the latest product offering on the Hedera Hashgraph network. And it's a way that decentralized communities can come to a total order on transactions in a really nice, scalable, and manageable way. Hedera creates topics that are really, really nice, and you can submit messages to them. And you can actually have fairly ordered topics with cryptographic hashes and immutable tamper-proof chains that kind of give you guarantees about the order of those messages. And because Hedera and Hashgraph can come to that order in such a provably fair, fast, and final way, you can actually build really, really game-changing applications on it. Like you can use it as an ordering mechanism for Fabric and private chains, which I think we'll talk about a bit later. But you can actually use it for a wealth of applications that really aren't possible in traditional blockchain architectures or development paradigms. So it's really just a different way to scale and manage your transactions in a decentralized ecosystem.
Yeah, another way to view it is it's the stream of information. A lot of those messaging and queuing protocols you can use, you can process events real time. And it's the first token-based streaming platform that I am aware of.
So, Pablo, can you also explain how does it enable developers to have a scalable and maybe fair ordering of events for their applications?
Yeah. So it basically offers a distributed cluster of probably fair, as in it's provable that it's a fair ordering of your transactions. You are able to have this in a spread around geographically without having to you yourself deploy that network. So we're reaching a further paradigm where you can use blockchain to something more than just batches. And with these real-time applications, you just need to have HBAR to access it.
Cool. So Vishal, my next question is to you. What types of apps are you looking at building using HCS?
So like Pablo and Cooper just explained about HCS, I would just like to add one more point, which actually opens up a whole lot of kind of Pandora's box for different types of applications on HCS, is that with HCS, basically what HCS brings to the table is that it makes it possible for the existing centralized platform to achieve the trust of being decentralized without statement for especially entrepreneurs, wherein people right now become a bit hesitant to move towards blockchain because they have to do a lot of changes and they have to basically do a technology stack traversal and maybe move a big chunk or business logic of their existing tech to blockchain. But using HCS, you can trim all that down and use HCS for the fairness and ordering. Now, with this being said, existing platforms can leverage HCS to become a decentralized network, or at least achieve the trust of being a decentralized network without doing a lot of changes in their existing platforms. So things like auction sites or stock exchanges or multimedia games or multiplayer games. I mean, you can basically open this up to a lot of domains and everybody can leverage HCS to introduce trust in their existing system without doing a lot of changes.
Yeah, I think Pablo and Vishal both touched on two really key parts about HCS for me as a developer, which is that Pablo touched on that it's really one of the first kind of pub/sub real-time development paradigms in the blockchain ecosystem. Anyone that's developing on Hedera Hashgraph's consensus service can use it similarly to how they would use Apache Kafka or another type of message queue. But as Vishal said, they have an easy integration into their existing application architecture stacks and don't need to completely move and hire a team of Solidity engineers or anything like that to get the kind of benefits of this ecosystem. But I think that's all that I would add to that last question for you, Sharat.
Yeah. So Vishal, what plans Resolute has for HCS? What are you planning to build?
Since Resolute has been working with a couple of startups on the Hedera network, we plan to basically utilize the power of HCS in the existing applications that we've done, and give them the option of moving from existing like Solidity, writing Solidity smart contracts and moving that business logic to HCS, and also maybe working something on providing HCS wrapper as a service to different startups so they can just use that and plug it into their existing system and achieve a near decentralized approach for trust. Does that answer your question, Sharon?
Sure. So Cooper, can you tell me more about how HCS can be used along with another network like say Hyperledger Fabric or Corda?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone familiar with the Hedera ecosystem knows that the Hedera Consensus Service white paper was originally introduced to the market in a white paper that was co-authored by the IBM blockchain team. the IBM blockchain team was really interested in exploring how the Hedera consensus service can bridge the gap between public and private distributed ledger technologies or distributed networks. And so if you wanted to use the Hedera consensus service with something like Hyperledger Fabric or a permission blockchain, it's a really nice and easy integration where you can actually just swap out what's called the orderer or the ordering mechanism within that private blockchain network. Right now, if you're building on Fabric, you have the choice of Apache Kafka and maybe a few other solutions, but you don't have any solutions right now that would bridge this gap between public and private and create this kind of auditable, transparent, and verifiable main network history, but still have some of the privacy and security and control guarantees that private and permission networks can provide. So this is really a unique offering to the market where you could program on Hedera Hashgraph and use Fabric like you're currently using Fabric in your enterprise, maybe firewalled, very managed deployments, and get the best of both worlds there.
Cool. So what are the fees associated with HCS?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So there's a few kind of core operations when you're building HCS applications. There's, creating a new consensus service topic, which is actually, yeah, this is great. Thank you, Pablo. If you haven't seen our fee calculator, go to hedera.com/fees. And you should, or estimator.hedera.com is the quick access for people who know how to dig through our source code. And basically, you should be able to see the cost of each of these operations. So you can create a topic, you can update a topic, you can delete a topic, and you can send messages to this topic. And what you're going to do is you're going to pay HBAR for whatever type of these operations that you want to do. So likely you're going to create a topic every once in a while, you're going to update it every once in a while, and you're going to send a lot of messages through that topic. And so Pablo is actually just demonstrating out a real world use case right now, where he's going in and saying, in this example, we're going to create one new topic. We're going to update that topic once, and we're going to send 99,999 messages through that topic. And you can actually see that this is how much HBAR it's going to cost you. So right now on the Hedera main network, on the test network, it would cost you about $10 worth of HBAR to run an HCS-powered application that runs this many operations. Thanks. Great demo, Pablo. Is there anything else that you would like to add about fees and things people should be aware of there?
Yeah, I would say definitely look at these values and then compare them to your real world use case. Sometimes it's cheaper than this. Other things to look at is amortized. So you may pay like 1 cent here, but then you're going to be paying 0.0 or half a cent or a quarter of a cent per transaction. So you can bring your values down. Although I do think topics are a great way to distribute your data load. And you may even connect them back into Hedera for other topics to connect to other systems. Yeah,
that's a great question. Thank you, Tyler, for asking that, by the way.
Yeah. So Pablo, can you tell us more? Is there any limit to the messages you can send?
Yeah, so I've recently learned there's some limits to messages you can send. So first off, the size of the message, you can't just, send it like 10 megabyte files. So you have to divide it into smaller files if you want to send specific messages with a lot of information. Mm-hmm. And the different services will have on average is about the TPS for the service divided by 13, so the number of nodes available. And that will give you the average amount of transactions you can send to a node.
Yeah, I think Tyler was asking about size limitations for the actual submit message. Do you know what it is offhand? I want to say it's like 4 or 6 kilobytes. So it's a decent sized message.
Yes, I think 4 kilobytes.
I could be wrong on that. And, just like everything else, the this is a super early beta product. Right now we're doing, consistent tight-knit feedback and working on how it's going to be used and changing this pricing and the fee model and all of those things. But it's a reasonably big size, and we actually have ways in an example application, among other things, that demonstrate message chunking. So ways that if you have messages that are bigger than that limitation, ways that you can still send those through this consensus service. Great questions, though. Keep asking away in the YouTube chat or dailystamp.io. Thank you, guys.
So are there any testnet mirror nodes which developers can use?
Vishal, do you want to take this one, or Pablo? I've been stealing all the thunder over here.
Oh, it's not my H4 wallet. It's Kabuto. Let me open it up.
Different Launchpad project.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, so there is kabuto.sh.
It's a little hard to hear you, Vishal, unfortunately.
Kabuto,
I think what
Dragon Glass, these are some of the explorers, online explorers. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're coming in better now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying that there are a few online explorers like Kabuto, Dragon Glass, which will start supporting mirror nodes for HCS.
Correct. And you can query them here. So you can even look at the testnet. And as you can see, there are no, so these are coming real time. That's the cool thing about the Kabuto setup, is that all transactions are coming real time, and kind of like I don't know if you guys are familiar with the old inbox by Google, but you could pause your inbox. Here you can pause transactions as they come. So if you click here on testnet, you'll see that there's a new type of transaction. It's called a consensus something something. So let's figure out what that says. Consensus submit message.
Submit message.
Right. So this consensus submit message is an HCS transaction. And as you can see here, you find the fees, and you know exactly how much this person is paying, although they're sending
the message.
Yeah, it's an empty message, maybe for some sort of.
There are two other block explorers or network explorers that I would call out. If you could go to hashlog or ledger.hashlog.
Ledger.hashlog.io.
Yep. And this is actually a project that we'll talk about on our next Hedera Hashgraph virtual meetup. But if you could go back to Kabuto.
Okay, yeah.
And then grab a transaction hash for any of these.
So let's grab this transaction hash here.
And go to Acore. And then you actually have to click on test network because I think you're on the main network right now.
You're correct, yes.
But this is actually a really cool new tool that we'll talk about on the next Hedera Hashgraph virtual meetup next week. But this is a way to compare results across different mirror nodes. Sorry, Sharat, go ahead and keep moving us forward here.
Sure. So can you talk more about how HCS may give a startup a faster ramp up? And what are the conditions a startup founder needs to think about applying HCS to their current model of applications?
That's a great question. I'll talk a little bit about how it's going to help it get easier, and then I'll kick it over to Pablo about how it can kind of help them. But Vishal talked about this really well before. Traditional blockchain development is a very hard thing to know. It's a very specialty. It's a niche, very much like being a cloud developer right when cloud started coming out. And so what Hedera is doing with this consensus service and this kind of pub/sum development paradigm is really lowering that barrier of threshold and enabling any application developer, especially those working in traditional enterprise environments, to have access to these technologies. And then, there's the obvious reasons that you'd want them, like immutability, censorship resistance, data provenance. But Pablo could talk a little bit more maybe about why he's excited about HCS and those types of things.
Oh yeah, I can totally talk your ear off about streaming platforms. So we can probably talk about what we're doing a little bit and what you can do. So For starters, I would highly recommend just Googling streaming platforms or data streaming platforms, as this is inherently what Hedera is providing. And when you're streaming data, you're really providing connections between the different silos of data that you have as a company. So these may be one service connecting to another on your own company. So you're saying you have say a server here with a bucket of data, and maybe you have a client here with more data, and you're trying to figure out ways to send data between these guys. But really, if you save it on this area, maybe the guys over here that do Hadoop don't really access it. So how can these guys also access this information? And this is where Hedera can come in and say, here is a topic, and the topic can be the client analytics. And this topic can now be consumed by multiple people within the platform. And you can make this be the common term in the industry has been used, the nervous system of your company. So you're able to now connect multiple different applications like IoT data into Hedera. And then through Hedera, you can now connect it and gather all this information and maybe create a funnel into a Hadoop or any sort of EMR clusters. And you're able to now run your analytics, but you can trust that the data hasn't been tampered with since it went out from these different clients, or maybe other algorithms are grabbing data here. And even when data is provided here, it can also be sent back into the net, and you can then send it here. And as Cooper and Vishal mentioned earlier, you were talking about Hyperledger. This really brings in the ledger. There we go. You're able to now have a Hyperledger consortium maybe running on this end and connected to another Hyperledger consortium here through this network of trusted data repositories. So this area is trusted and this area is trusted, but you don't want to really connect them, and you don't want to connect these unlimited access. So you provide certain channels of information to communicate. And that's how you can use Hedera to really power your startup in the future. So you can have one application, maybe it's a mobile phone application, and it will upload information into Hedera. Maybe there's some account information, but also some smart contracts that contain maybe what are the groups of people that are doing certain things. And you can use both of those to now provide information back into your Hyperledger setup. And as you can see, this becomes the blob that connects it all without you having to build a different channel of communication for each one of these solutions.
Yeah, I think that was an awesome overview of how kind of application developers, systems engineers, architecture designers can start to think about ways that you can use Hedera Consensus Service as kind of like an event bus or an event service bus or message queue or kind of all these other things. So this was a great diagram, Pablo. Thank you so much.
Thanks. It was very, very impromptu.
Those are the best diagrams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to Kabuto, I really appreciate what these guys have done here, the Launchpad guys. So you can really track everything that's coming in and out, and you can now build your application. So it offers quite a few advantages over what other blockchains offer, and you can connect them. So if you guys are familiar with Eventium, that's a really interesting project by Consensus. And it connects transactions from Ethereum into different services. You can even connect it to Kafka. Now,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I've heard or have thought about myself working on ways that you could bridge Kafka and Hedera's consensus service.
Correct.
We actually had a question in the chat here that said, so it's somewhat analogous to a sidechain. You can use the Hedera consensus service as a sidechain. So you could have an entire blockchain that's anchored to the Hedera main network. we actually call these application networks or app networks. And so these are distributed networks of computers that are all using the Hedera consensus service in the same way. If everyone was using the consensus service to run a sidechain, then you could say that, it's an app net that is a sidechain, or just like that. So it's definitely a way that you can anchor different application-specific networks to the security and the trust model of Hedera. That's a great question.
Correct. And another way to look at Hedera is also the layer 0 at the end of the day, because it provides the ordering mechanism. So you can build something on top of Hedera and you get access to not just smart contracts, not just files, but ordering. And then you can build your Ethereum, your Bitcoin, all connected here and sending information back to get the actual order. So you don't have to trust these guys to provide the right order. You ask them all to send it through a topic to Hedera. And that's a big difference between sidechains. Usually sidechains have to be faster than the
Yeah, it's kind of like the inverted model of a sidechain, where a sidechain wants to execute some transactions and eventually settle that state on the chain, where Hedera's consensus service wants to give you the total order of those transactions, because we can come to consensus on them so quickly and let you process those transactions and derive that state afterwards in your own application network.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I would probably think of it in a different way, that since the name itself is Hedera consensus service, so it's more of providing the consensus or opening up the consensus algorithm. So it's not about being a side chain per se. So like I said, in the existing application as well. So if I am running on a traditional net or a traditional tech where I'm using something like just like a mean stack, I can host the same mean stack on different nodes and let those Mongo, whenever I'm pushing something to the Mongo database, I also push it via the stream or the HCS, so that I get the ordering. So at the end of the day, a DLT, one of the major fundamental problems that it solves is the immutability and the trust, which basically corresponds to the ordering. So I would say that it's not kind of a site that you can actually replace your existing consensus and use Hedera's consensus service as the underlying consensus for your network.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of it being a side chain that sits off to the side, it would actually be a kind of fork of that network that uses HCS as the ordering mechanism. Sorry if that wasn't clear. And if you are interested in ways that Hedera can provide the ordering mechanism, I really do recommend checking out the Hedera Consensus Service white paper. It explains how you can use it with Fabric really, really well. But thank you for that, Sharat. It's a great distinction, and it's important to be clear.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions about data authentication and multi-signature. So can you explain how does it work? How authentication works when you are speaking to HCS or let's say a side chain, and how the multi-sig will work in this case?
So one thing that I would like to point out, just or maybe ask, because I'm not completely aware, if you have an account on Hedera, you have all the, I don't think you have the account service, maybe it's here, where you create an account and you can put multiple keys to control that account.
Crypto Create should create an account for you. It's just the shorthand. Sorry about that.
No worries, just making sure I got the right one. So let's say you have, I'm just playing up by ear, let's say 5 keys. Would that this security of 5 keys also transfer into a consensus topic?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So there's multiple access control points for the Hedera consensus service. So when you create a new topic, you're able to define kind of like a file who has rights to access that topic. So if I create a new topic and say that this private key or this public key is the only public key that can write to this topic, then I'm the only person, or whoever holds those keys has their own topic that's private to them. But with multi-sig, and because Hedera natively supports threshold signatures, you could actually create an N of M threshold signature for everyone who wants to use that Hedera consensus service topic. And so how this would actually manifest is if I'm getting in a consortium and my consortium is trying to run the Hedera consensus service together, we have a Hyperledger Fabric deployment, we can all create a threshold key that is everyone who should be able to access this topic. And when we create that consensus service topic, we will say that this threshold key are the only people allowed to access this topic. And then so basically when you're submitting this consensus message, you'll have to sign with one of those members of that threshold key. And so you can have this really nice, the same kind of security model that you do for managing or altering other entities or objects on Hedera, like your accounts or your files, just like you do with the consensus service. It's really nice. And then Pablo showed out too, obviously, that the more signatures and the more processing that you're asking the network to do, you're going to have to pay more fees in HBAR. So every computer out there is going to have to process and validate these signatures. So not only is the initial creation of that multi-sig more expensive, but every time you're trying to use that, it has to validate more signatures. And so yeah, please check out this calculator estimator tool. It's super helpful and a great way to test out your use cases.
Cool.
Sure.
Talking about HBAR and fees, can you tell more about how developers can earn HBAR using Hedera Heroes and
maybe other ways also you can earn? Let's see. Hedera Heroes. Heroes with an E.
Yeah. So Hedera Heroes is a really cool project, actually inspired by a program that Twilio has called Twilio Voices, if anyone's familiar with Twilio. But it's a really great way to kind of engage and inspire some people to get involved in our developer ecosystem. And so basically, if you want to, you're able to create things like technical tutorials, blog posts, getting started videos. There's a bunch of examples here that are listed in the issues, like a tutorial for how to add HBAR payments to your web app, a tutorial for writing your first smart contract, these things. And if you do this and give back and educate our developer community, we're actually going to reward you with about $100 worth of HBAR for doing so. And you can see Eamon over here actually got his, and he has a really great post. Looks like Ben from Hashing Systems helped him out. And yeah, it's really great. You can see us commenting on here as well, offering to even update his tutorial to the latest version of the SDK for him. But yeah, it's a really easy way to get started. If you have any questions or you're not sure about, does this topic make sense for Heroes? Is this worth sharing? Reach out to me directly or file an issue in the repository. More than likely, it's going to be valuable for our developer community, and we will want you to create that content. Pablo, Sharat, Vishal, is there anything about Heroes that you would like to chat about? Or would one of you like to chat about Hedera Boost as well?
I think Hedera Heroes is a great program.
You could also talk about Gitcoin.
Gitcoin. What should we talk about Gitcoin? We did the hackathon. I'll be meeting up with Kevin this weekend. If anyone's going to be here this weekend, just ping me on Twitter. I think my DMs are open. We'll be at ETH Denver 2020, starting Friday.
It's a great conference.
Yeah, it's a great conference. Lots and lots of stickers. I still have a bunch from
anyone at ETH Denver or in the Ethereum community, and you want to learn more about Hedera, Hashgraph, our governing council, what we're doing. Be sure to reach out to Pablo. He's a great community member and can answer all your questions, I'm sure.
Yeah, most of them. If not, I'll just,
You'll send them to me.
Yeah. So this is me, and not going to open my DMs.
Oh, that's what you look like? You're not just a blank face this whole time?
No, I might put like a Bitmoji at some point. I think that's a pretty nice plan. So this is Cooper here, and you can
That
just
is
hit
me.
us up on our DMs and ask any questions you want, or even add us. Oh, you recently broke 1,000. Nice.
Thank you. Someone asked if I could describe an example use case or business model around the Hedera consensus service. So this is one of those things that's so unique. It's a very agnostic, delightful API to build with that you could really do anything that you want. It could be an event service bus. It could be the consensus mechanism in a private chain. It could be an immutable audit log. It could be so many different things.
Opening random websites that do streaming applications that would translate fairly well with Hedera.
Yeah, so it's really, premature to try to package it in something. When people were inventing and pioneering the types of smart contracts and infrastructure we're currently using, I don't think anyone really knew what use cases were going to come out of it. But if I had to pick a few that I was really, really excited about, I think non-fungible tokens and different ways to keep track of auditable data records across multiple parties that obviously don't trust each other. So things like international remittances of non-fungible tokens, or even just building an agnostic auditing API where you can audit any type of message regardless of the contents of it for verifiable third parties. So it's really just one of those fundamentally unique, broad technologies that, like Apache Kafka and the things that Pablo are showing, is really going to change not just what you're currently doing, but the scope of what's possible to build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can search maybe things like, I think Apache Kafka has really awesome use cases. If you just go on their organization website and just find some different use cases written out, you'll learn more about how corporations and enterprises and different companies are using these distributed streaming platforms. And you can find ways that you can now leverage, well, soon to be 39 corporations running essentially a token-based Kafka, as well as the files and everything. So there's more to say, but if you're really looking for HCS use cases, Apache Kafka is a great one.
Yeah, I really love the idea of, if anyone from Apache Kafka is watching this, I know some of their team, hello. I love the idea of working with Kafka, and Kafka can handle, hundreds of thousands or millions of events a second. And I love the idea of filtering those events and only logging the important ones that are relevant to auditable multi-party parties on the Hedera consensus service. So hopefully you see something like that coming your way soon.
And if you want to look for other ones, maybe on the blockchain space, I know the Kafka website is a little slow at the moment. You can look at the Whisper protocol on Ethereum, which is peer-to-peer messaging, which is also very similar to what we're talking about in here. And you can now have the communication. So if you look at different designs in Ethereum, you can learn more about different ways that you can use HCS. So Swarm and Whisper are both really good to look at. There's postal service over Swarm. There's a ton of stuff on GitHub. And these really provide the underlying structure that you will use to then build up your use case. And you can learn a lot about what people have built in these proof of concepts.
That makes sense. Pablo, this is a question that you or maybe Sharat might know. BitTorrent uses trackers for peer discovery and data authentication. Could it potentially use HCS? I'm not going to claim to know anything about BitTorrent's architecture.
Even I don't. Maybe Vishal, do you have any thoughts on this, using data trackers for peer discovery and authentication?
I've not actually worked deeply with how the BitTorrent network works peer-to-peer for data discovery. So
I appreciate
I'm not
everyone on
really
this call's
sure.
honesty and saying we don't know how BitTorrent really works. If you ask that question, I'm sorry, I don't have a great answer for you. If you want to, you can send me an email at cooper@hedera.com. And I'm happy to look into how BitTorrent could leverage HCS for you. It's definitely interesting stuff, just not my wheelhouse. Sharat, what other questions do we have here for us?
Now, talking about recent news, now Google announced today that they will enable developers to use mirror nodes and application networks with HCS. So what does it mean for the HCS as a service or for Hashgraph as a community? How does it expand the network of reach, if I were to use that term? If you can explain more on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we're very happy to be working with the Google Cloud team. And as this blog post shows, and I really recommend that you read this and take this as the source of truth. But Hedera and the Hashgraph team are very, very excited to be partnering with the Google team and having them support our public test network as well as the consensus service ecosystem. As well as Sharat is showing, or Pablo is showing, that they are now members of the Hedera Governing Council. There's not much more I can share beyond what is included in this blog post, unfortunately. But I would highly, highly recommend you go read this and look into, the Governing Council, why companies would get involved. The actual LLC agreements are available on hedera.com/council, which are super interesting to read. And I would highly recommend to look at that. But for me, this really means that Google is making a testament to the long-term ecosystem of Hedera and the Hedera consensus service. And I'm really happy that I have the option and the support of major infrastructure players like Google Cloud and building my applications and things like that. So it's a great sign for the community. Pablo or Vishal could happily talk about how that impacts their businesses or the ways that they think about the consensus service. But yeah, check out the LLC agreement. It's super interesting stuff.
It's the executive version.
The execution version, I think.
Oh, execution. Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah,
Sure.
Brings in a lot of information, but also you'll be able to access the data set, which is a really cool way to use Google's BigQuery algorithms. And
we're really excited about BigQuery and the other integrations and developments that Google is doing in the blockchain space. We're very excited about those.
Mm-hmm.
Vishal, can you tell more about how you were using HCS for EarthID, one of the dApps on Hashgraph? You did a testing, I believe.
Right. So on EarthID, just like I mentioned, currently the implementation is more smart contract based implementation, where from the generation of EarthID, validation and everything happens on the smart contract. That's another layer that is kind of getting added to the tech stack, and that is what I was basically trying to touch base on. That for entrepreneurs or for startup founders, this is another kind of a problem statement that they have to go through when they are trying to embrace the decentralized network or decentralizing towards changing their existing tech to incorporate how they can basically fit into the decentralized network and the trust layer of the decentralized network. So what we are doing over here is basically using the traditional tech itself and the fundamental key points like just Pablo is sharing, like the user onboarding, the KYC and verification and access management. So these points we are going to move towards HCS, so that when the user is getting onboarded or when the KYC is being verified, by third-party vendors of Earth ID. Everything is tracked and ordered on HCS as well as the access management. So the one of the concepts that Earth ID brings to the table is limited time access management to the data. So the data uh, basically be deleted, or the access should be revoked from that person. So such kind of uh, problem statements fit very well
I think we lost Vishal.
within HCS, and that's where we are moving right now. Hello.
Okay, I think we can hear you
Hello.
again. Sorry about that.
I'm not sure till what point you were able to hear me.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thank you for talking through My Earth ID as well as how you're leveraging the Hedera Consensus Service. Are there any other questions in the chat or on dailystamp.io that I have missed here? Please keep asking us questions. I think that we're going to be around for another 10 or maybe 15 minutes.
There's one question about state proof.
Right here, will Hashgraph state proof become a legal gold standard worldwide?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're really excited about the mathematical guarantees that state proofs do provide, as well as the ability to use those as, actual sources of verifiable information. I think it will take a long time for, judicial systems, legislative bodies, and people to understand why you can trust these types of decentralized ecosystems. But we're very confident that over time, that Hedera's state proofs will be a great source of security and trust and immutability and all those things. And if there is an option to accept those as sources of legally binding truth, we're very much looking forward to working with those legislative bodies when the time comes.
Mm-hmm. And before then, we still have the governing council, who I believe it might be one of these. Well, the governing council is running the nodes, so it's not like it's a group of miners with the most computing power. It's a series of companies who have the best interest on the platform in mind.
Yeah, hopefully that answers the question. Otherwise,
Sure, it does. Yeah.
I can try to dive into a daily stamp some other time this week, and please let me know if there's other ways that you think that we can be helping educate about the ways that you can use state proofs and other cryptographic security mechanisms to actually use those in courts of law.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as Pablo can see, here are the current members of the Hedera Governing Council.
Yeah, and from here, I think since we're on the Hashgraph website or the Hedera website, it'd be good to mention Hedera Boost.
Yeah, absolutely. For anyone who's not familiar, Hedera Boost is Hedera Hashgraph's startup program. The goal really is to help you from ideation to development to launching and growing and gaining your user base and your product market fit. So if you're interested in building applications or protocols or services for the Hedera network, we will support you with business development, marketing, technical support, community resources like hash name services and My Earth ID, like that Pablo and Vishal actually work on, to make sure that you have everything that's needed to be successful building your Hedera-powered application. On top of that, we want to offset some of the financial burden or the risk associated with that. So you will receive $1,000 worth of HBAR for your first 3 months to cover your initial application's transaction fees. And so we're really, really excited to have launched this program. And we've had a lot of really great projects apply so far. So I really recommend checking it out and talking to some of those projects like hashing systems and Resolute and Dragon Glass about their experiences and ways that you can get started.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper, can you tell more about how many people are using Boost as of now? How many startup founders are leveraging Boost?
Yeah, so I don't know how many we have confirmed at the moment. I believe we've had over 40 or 50 different projects come through the pipeline in some different way. But I think that we are working towards announcing the initial Boost participants in the coming weeks or, a couple months. And so we're really excited that these are applications that will be actively using, driving transactions and traffic on the network. And we're really looking to get some high quality projects through this pipeline.
Sure. I think with the introduction of Google as a governing council member, the number of people applying to Boost will go up dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great if it does.
Definitely.
Can you also talk about what are the criteria for anyone to apply to this Boost program?
Yeah, so the main criteria is that you have to be, pretty far along in the ideation phase. You have to, hopefully be at development or ready to start development and need that technical support. So ideally, you have a clear picture in mind of, where you're at in your phase, what it would take for you to be successful, and what the Hedera team can actually do to, help you achieve that success. So the main criteria is basically just building on Hedera in a meaningful way. And so if you're building on Hedera, you should be able to apply to it, but then I would just make sure that you flag, as Pablo is doing here, what are you building? How far along are you? Where are you at in your product market fit? And, all of those other things are great for us to know. And it's not, a one-time thing. Like if you think that I might want to apply now, but I might want to apply in 6 months, just please go ahead and apply now. And we'll tell you if we think that there are certain things that you need to do before getting into the program. So, it's not this one shot. If I don't make it, I'll never get in. Please feel free to apply. It does seem like someone had a question about non-fungible tokens on Hedera. I don't know. Did we answer that one?
I think for non-fungible tokens, just plugging this out there, you can launch a non-fungible token here. Now, for the uninitiated, this is the console that we launched as hashing systems for Hedera. It uses Composer, and you're able to select the type of token you want to launch. And just as easy, you just click deploy. And you can optimize. It does a lot of different things through Solidity compiler. And you can select the contract and deploy it. And you can't see here because it's only selecting to show one window, but I'm accepting the deploy. And there might be, oh, I updated my key, I forget. Security measures.
But yeah, so NFTs on, Hedera Smart Contract Service will, like Pablo shows, work in his Solidity, and you can use the hashing systems console and deploying tools to do so. There are actually a bunch of different ways that you can build, non-fungible tokens on the Hedera consensus service. We're definitely excited to look into standards and all those things, but a great way to look into this is actually the Token Taxonomy Initiative. I don't know, who's familiar with this, but it's a governing body. If Pablo could pull it up somehow.
Yeah, I'm opening it.
That creates standards, and one of the standards that they create is ways that you can implement non-fungible tokens. And so you can build application networks like we talked about earlier that match this token taxonomy specification and implement non-fungible tokens on the Hedera Hashgraph consensus service. We're very proud to have been part of the organizations that came up and are part of the team driving the Token Taxonomy Initiative. And so there's a variety of ways that you can build all different types of tokens, not only on the native Hedera smart contract service, but also on the Hedera consensus service.
I think the actual
hopefully
website's this one.
Yes, this looks more like it. But hopefully this answers your question. They have a good kind of architectural diagram and stuff like that. It's a very detailed body of work. But this should give you insights into how you can actually implement non-fungible tokens on Hedera Hashgraph's consensus service. And then I got another question, but it's vaguely asking me for something that we're going to talk about on a webinar this Thursday with Dr. Lehman Barrett when he talks about the Hedera Hashgraph consensus service. So I will not answer this specific question and recommend that everyone go sign up for that.
What is the question, though?
I'll show you a link at the end. I will not state the question because it's a teaser, gives a little bit away. Sign up for the webinar and find out.
Where do you sign up for the webinar? I need to do that right now.
That is a good question. Let me check what the link is.
Let's see. So you can see Google. This was a very popular tweet. And we are here. And,
how much further can it be?
Oh, speaking of awesome news, Jim's, I don't know how to say, Acor, like acorn, Acor. So they launched an awesome decentralized dashboard to look at the coronavirus.
It will be on our next live stream next week.
Yeah, so we will also skip that. You can click it if you want, but so you can see a very cool dashboard.
Here's the webinar registration that we're looking for. So yeah, this webinar is this Thursday, actually. This would be the #1 thing I book on my calendar this week, is listen to Lehman, the co-founder and inventor of Hedera Hashgraph. One of our lead developer advocates, Greg Scollard. You'll also have Reese Davies, who is the lead developer at AdStacks, one of the leading applications building on Hedera Hashgraph. Please go look through our Twitter and sign up for this webinar. It's going to be great stuff. And you never want to miss Lehman speak.
And go through their Twitter and ask them questions if you want something to come up on the live stream.
Cool. I think that those were all the questions that I was flagged to answer. Someone put the link to sign up for the webinar in the YouTube chat, so please go there rather than dig through our YouTube, unless you want to. Oh, okay, sorry. Someone asked when staking might be available. I actually don't know the answer to this one, unfortunately. My suggestion would be to go to the Hedera improvement proposal repository, which is github.com/hashgraph. And then /Hedera improvement proposal.
Yeah, it changed some there we go.
Yeah, sorry, it's the full name now. And I would create a new issue here, and I would, explain and say, hey, I am really excited about staking. This is kind of why, or maybe Pablo will even find it for you. One moon. I would ask it here, and I would explain, why staking is so important, and hopefully the Hedera product team and the Hedera governing council will come back to you with an answer on our roadmap. Yeah, this is my best suggestion.
Yeah, this is a great way to reach out, and very public. So if anyone else wants to chime in or comment on similar...
Or if there's any other features that you think we should be working on, please file issues, make suggestions. We love the feedback.
Yeah, can we have more fine-grained controls over account management? Anything?
Where are the zero knowledge proofs? These are questions people can ask us in these improvement proposals. Sharat, are there any other questions that you have here before I should do my last minute housekeeping?
I don't think we have more questions as of now. Yeah.
That sounds great. So the last kind of two things that I would do is I would really recommend you go sign up for this webinar with Lehman on Thursday. I said it before, Lehman is going to talk about how game-changing applications can be built on the Hedera consensus service. Greg is going to walk you through demo apps and ways that this will actually be kind of brought to market in terms of use cases. And Reese Davies will talk about how it's actually already being used live on the test networks and will be brought to production. This is going to be a great webinar. And then additionally, I would say please go and sign up for our next virtual meetup. It's going to be next week. I am blanking on the date right now, but it's going to be with Ben Chavero, who is the lead architect at Acor. And they're going to talk about their coronavirus tracking system and Hashlog and their Network Explorer and all of these other cool things that they're building. Pablo's trying to find the sign up link for us here.
It's over here.
Yeah, you just scroll past it down. You're scrolling too fast.
Is it this one? Oh, it's this one. It looked like a link to me.
Yeah, now that Pablo stopped scrolling, yeah, please sign up for this virtual meetup as well. Ben is one of the leading architects that builds on Hedera. You might know him. He works on a variety of projects. So please follow him on Twitter or let us know if you have any questions. Pablo, Sharat, is there anything else that you guys would like to chat about?
I think the one more thing that we can chat about before we close up is if you want to try uploading files on Hedera, you can do that today. Adding them as easily as just clicking here on the console. You're able to upload pretty much anything.
This is awesome. If anyone saw our virtual meetup, I think 2 ago, you would have seen the initial release and demo of the console for hashing systems where he demoed, smart contract support. And so it's really awesome to see files.
Yeah, so now we uploaded a file and now we downloaded a file and it's all through Hedera. So you're able to access this. This is all done through the Hash.js setup.
The decentralized Dropbox.
Yeah, you can build there's a lot of possibilities here. You can build your own version of Dropbox that's used only by the person with the keys. And how to do it? Well, you just need to go here and you'll find the table of contents. And there's file create and file retrieve. So you can set this up and create your own version of Dropbox on top of Hedera today.
I wouldn't have brought it up if you didn't go through the hash.js GitHub repo, but when am I going to see Hedera consensus service support in here?
We're going through that as we speak. There's a bit of a testing.
I keep asking Pablo about this too, which is funny.
Yeah, we really want to get that chat application ready. That's there's some housekeeping we must do for the MayorNet before we can deploy it for everybody. But as soon as we get that sorted, we'll be publishing that.
I'll be patiently waiting. Cool, Sharat, is there anything else that you would like to chat about or shout out or tell people to sign up for while you have us all here?
We don't have any more questions, but again, we would encourage everyone to sign up for the Lehman's webinar, which is on 13th, and look forward to everyone building on Hashgraph and join the Boost program.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone so much. Please join us in our next virtual tutorial or next virtual meetup, as well as the webinar on Thursday. Please let us know if you have any questions about Hedera, Hashgraph, and getting started building. Thanks everyone for your time. Have a good rest of your day or night, depending on where you are. Thank you. And thanks to all of our guests for joining and all their time. Really appreciate it.